Al Jazeera's Ali Hashem is at the Doha Forum. And Ali, the question of what happens next in Gaza, very much the forefront of many leaders' minds there.
Well, absolutely, Niamh. A lot is being discussed here at the Doha Forum, mainly about this issue, the Gaza issue. And actually, I'm joined here by Norway's Foreign Minister, Mr. Espen, Barth, Eide. And, given your presence here among a huge number of delegates, politicians, diplomats, how much was the Gaza issue or the Palestinian issue on the table?
It was actually very much on the table, both in the open for us, but also in several meetings that we had in the surrounding this meeting. And the people are very much aware, I believe, that we are in a very dire situation. The war might be over, but we don't know yet because we have a fragile ceasefire, and we can either move forward or it will go backwards. If we do not move into phase 2, we will either see a return to war or descent into anarchy, and we don't want either of those, so we have to move forward. And what we've been trying to do here is to identify the concrete steps that we can take right now to move into the next phase.
Well, that's good. But if we go back in history, Oslo were the first accords between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, President Trump is putting on the table the Trump plan. How much do they complement each other?
Much has happened since Oslo. The best thing about Oslo was that we started to build the Palestinian institutions, the PA as we have been calling it, or the Palestinian National Governance as we call it now, bottom up. So that institutions should be in place before a state was finally recognized and established. That was the good news about Oslo. The problem was that we presupposed that the two parties actually wanted to negotiate the final settlement. And as long as one party did not want to progress, and over the last years that has been the Netanyahu government, that led to a stalemate where nothing really happened. And the situation deteriorated both in Gaza and in the West Bank, and then we got this horrible war. So we had to come out of that paradigm, keeping the goal, which is a sovereign Palestinian state consisting of both Gaza and the West Bank and the relevant part of Jerusalem. But the way to get there has to be sought in a different way. And the Trump plan says many important things. It even has a pointer in its point 19 towards future Palestinian governance, but one of our tasks is to make sure that becomes a reality.
Yeah, well, the hurdle here is that Prime Minister Netanyahu refuses the idea of a Palestinian state or the idea of two states. So how is the international community and main players going to help push this plan forward?
Well, first you should remember that over the last years, and I believe Norway, together with Spain, Ireland and Slovenia has played a role in this. We have the new wave of recognitions of a Palestinian state, and now we are almost as many states on the planet as recognize Palestine as the number of states that has recognized Israel. That does not mean that the state has appeared, of course, but it means this is very clearly the view of the international community, expressed over and over again, that the end state has to be a Palestinian state. And what we needed to do was to take away this veto that was de facto given to Israel over what happens in territories they illegally occupy. Israel, of course, has a voice in this, just like the Palestinians, needless to say, but an absolute veto on what happens to other people's territories that you occupy, that has to be removed. And that has been a key element of this. And I believe that the Trump plan has many of the elements we need, not only to go from ceasefire to peace in Gaza, but also to start building in the bigger picture a Palestinian state. But it requires sustained work and requires that those of us who believe in this continue to work for that goal.
Well, there's an issue, an alarming issue, is that the situation in Gaza, okay, there's now a plan and there's a ceasefire, let me say fragile ceasefire. But it's not only about Gaza. The whole region is going through a lot. In Lebanon, in Syria, so there's a situation of fragility, or if we can call it lawlessness in the Middle East. And Israel is actually attacking several areas.
You're right, and we can just start by the West Bank. While there is a ceasefire in Gaza, the The settler violence is increasing, largely without any kind of consequences, with impunity, and it's harder and harder and harder to be a Palestinian in the West Bank. And the Palestinian government is being undermined by the holding back of money, for instance, that is legally belongs to the Palestinians, but which is not transferred from Israel. So it's a very difficult situation. And we know that extremely well. We work very closely with the Palestinian administration on these issues, including on the practical issues of money and banking system and so on. But I do think that there is a recognition that we should not overlook, which is that the war in Gaza has been so terrible that the desire to find a real solution, not only to this war, because this was one of many wars in Gaza, but to the deeper conflict is also higher than ever before. And the idea now is to listen to Trump, listen to the Trump plan, all the 20 points, not pick a few of them, those we like most, but all of them, and then settle Gaza with a temporary administration, with an international stabilization force, with Palestinian police, with the demobilization of Hamas and the withdrawal of the IDF, and then out of that start building this future Palestinian state. But it's full of hurdles, and I could speak long about why this is difficult. But what keeps me optimistic is that the alternatives are all much worse.
Well, actually, the Palestinians argue that the roots of what happened isn't on the 7th of October. There are decades before the 7th of October. And, the post-7th of October conflict gave us a picture of how the situation is heading towards a dead end, whereas there's no clear solution, despite the fact there are initiatives. But on the ground, it seems very difficult to reach somewhere to a breakthrough.
It seems very difficult, I agree. But at the same time, I was in Sharm el-Sheikh together with President Trump, but also the other guarantors, the leaders of Egypt, of Qatar, of Turkey, and the whole international community, basically, the UN, the key European countries, key Arab countries, key countries from other parts came there to say, we are all behind this 20-point plan. Then it went to the Security Council. For the first time in many, many years, the Security Council agreed on something about Palestine. That's something. And I mean, that's also a momentum. And my job, I feel, is to build on that momentum rather than, deplore how difficult it is. Because it is difficult, but there is a momentum.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So we've heard Norway's foreign minister and all these discussions going on here at the Doha Forum.
Ali, many thanks for that. And many thanks, obviously, to Espen Barth Eide, as you mentioned, Norway's foreign minister.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.